So, hi everyone, welcome to a Career Accelerator event presented by Richard Gullis, who is the founder of Landing. We're super stoked to have him here today. We were just sort of talking before everyone tuned in, and I think he's got some really great content up his sleeve, so thanks everyone for joining. Just a little bit of background on Lighthouse Labs. I know there's a couple of alumni in the audience here, but for those of you who don't know too much about Lighthouse Labs yet, we are one of Canada's digital skills training companies, specializing in web development programs and data programs. So I think we've got some web dev alumni in the audience here. But we launched the Career Accelerator sort of amidst the pandemic alongside our commitment to $1 million in scholarships for those who had their careers impacted by COVID. There are so many people in Canada and across the world who have had their careers impacted. And we knew that it took more than just the financial support in the form of scholarships to help people make career changes after even their industries have taken a really hard hit. So we launched the Career Accelerator with the intention of providing added support for people who are interested in making those career changes by leveraging our team of career services advisors and our team that has been helping people make career changes into tech for the last 7 years. And we're also working with industry partners like Richard and other industry leaders that are helping provide the most relevant content from on the ground in the industry. So with that being said, if you have any questions about Lighthouse Labs or our career services here, please shoot me a private message in the chat, add me on LinkedIn, or I'll drop my email in the chat as well. And I'd be more than happy to connect. Without further ado, I am going to pass it off to Richard with just a few housekeeping things. Number one, we are recording. So if you're turning your camera and mic on, you might be recorded. So for now, just leave your questions in the chat. We'll have time at the end to answer them, and I'll be monitoring those questions throughout the event as well. And that is it from me. Just leave yourself on mute throughout the presentation so no one misses anything. But Richard, take it away.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Caroline, and thank you so much everyone for joining me today. Very excited to talk to you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart: job seeker strategies for resilience. As you can tell from the description for the event, resilience, to me especially, I think is probably one of the most important skills to learn, especially when you're on the job search. I think especially right now, given the environment of COVID-19 and the way we've all sort of been affected in one way or another. So resilience is one of those skills that I'm excited to talk about and share a lot of my own personal experiences in, and be able to hopefully impart some great wisdom and actionable tips that you can use literally starting right after this meeting. So what are we going to learn about today? First of all, we're going to talk about why a resilient mindset is one of your keys to success. We're going to talk a little bit about managing and reframing negative scenarios, recognizing that stress affects each and every one of us differently, and that something that might be stressful for me might not be as stressful for you, or might be more stressful for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to reframe some of those scenarios to work in our favor. We're going to talk about how to focus on the things that you can control. Certainly there are some things that we can't control. That's entirely okay. That's life. But we're going to focus in on the things that we can. We're going to talk about using fear to our advantage, and talk a little bit about sort of the anti-goal setting in terms of something called fear setting, which I'm excited to share with you today. We're going to talk about minimizing stress, and I'm going to share with you some of the ways that I personally minimize stress in my day-to-day. Certainly don't have to use every single one of the tips, but I think that at least something there might resonate with you today, and I'm confident that it'll be something that'll be helpful for you. And then lastly, we're going to talk about strategies for coping and self-compassion, because that really is also one of the big keys to being resilient, practicing self-compassion and being kind to ourselves. A little bit about me. So once again, my name is Richard Gullis, and I'm the founder of Landing. I'm a career marketer, and I've been marketing for over 10 years, which I'm really excited about. However, being in marketing, I found myself on the losing end of layoffs at least 9 times now. So I've been on the job search 9 times in my career. this is kind of the new norm. And my entire goal with when I founded Landing was to help sort of destigmatize job search and recognize that everyone's career journey is going to look different and exciting, and there's so many wonderful opportunities to explore. So I'm starting to build a specific community of job seekers and career-minded individuals to help each other out with Landing and to sort of help propel each other forward, because I think that it's really important that we all have each other's backs while on the job hunt. All right, so I'd be remiss not to mention this at the very beginning, that in spite of all of the wonderful advice I'm going to share with you today, sometimes we reach what we can kind of safely call a breaking point. So certainly if you need help, please ask for it. I think the stigma around asking for help is starting to go away. I think it's okay, and I think we should all feel safe and confident to be able to ask for help whenever necessary. I have in the past, and it's been transformative in my career and in my life to be able to ask for help from family, friends, and professionals in order to help move me forward. And so again, I'd be remiss not to mention this specifically, that if you are feeling the effects of obviously COVID-19 and any specific negative mental health effects, please seek out the help that you need, because certainly I think that we are stronger together and we can rely on each other for that help. So let's kick it off. Why is a resilient mindset one of your keys to success? So being resilient, people who are resilient, these are some of the things that they do on the regular. First of all, they develop high quality connections. They know how to build relationships with other people in a very organic way. They practice self-care. People who are resilient, they know when to step away from their desks. They know when to take a break. They know how to set boundaries with people in their personal and professional lives. They practice that self-care, and that's what resilience can help empower you to do. They show up authentically. They're not putting on a brave face just to make someone else feel better. They know how to show up as themselves, and they're excited to do so. They stay inspired, and they understand what requires them to, or what's required of them to stay motivated. They display mental toughness, so they know how to manage that stress. They see opportunities in just about every scenario, and this is one of those cool things that I learned a few years ago and I've been employing every single day since. And they really know how to manage change being one of the biggest stressors, I think, for a lot of us. And they know how to manage that change, uncertainty, and stress very, very well. Because stressors cause you to go into fight or flight. It's a physiological response. Stress has just as much of a big impact on our mental capacity as it does our physical capacity as well. So it's very important to bear that in mind. And so I want to just highlight really quickly some of the effects of stress on your body, because you might be feeling these things right now and not realize that these are things that are happening to you, and that they're a direct result of stress. Perhaps headaches, stomach aches, heartburn, behavioral things like overeating, overdrinking, and drug use, insomnia. These are all things that are a result of stress, these external factors that are affecting us. And it's important to be mindful that they're happening in order for us to be able to combat them. I wanted to give everyone a quick moment to take a nice big deep breath and recognize that the world isn't as bleak as we may think it is right now. I understand COVID-19 is quite challenging, and again, we've all been impacted in one way or another, but it doesn't have to be as bad as we think it is. I'm gonna remind everyone that you are definitely stronger than you think. The stress that we're feeling right now is temporary. No matter how bad it is, it's temporary and it will pass. You have valuable skills to offer. Your self-worth is not your job title, and I love focusing in on this because I think a lot of us wrap our self-worth in the job that we do and what our title is. We're constantly trying to get title increases. So your self-worth is not your job title. It's very much the value that you offer the rest of the world and how you help other people achieve their goals. That's where your value comes from. Your self-worth is not the amount of time you've been job searching. So whether that's been 3 days, 3 months, 6 months, even a year. If you've been on the job hunt, your self-worth doesn't diminish the longer you've been unemployed, and I want to remind everyone of that. Again, your self-worth is the value that you offer the rest of the world. You deserve to do the work that fulfills you. I recognize that sometimes we might need to take a job that's not as exciting or as wonderful or fulfilling for us, but overall, in our careers, we get to do the work that fulfills us, and that's one of the beauties of being able to live where we do and in the time that we do. So just remember that. You deserve to be happy. And there are always new and exciting opportunities to explore, even during the pandemic, believe it or not. For any of you who've stepped on a Lego minifig, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say you have the power to be strong and resilient, like one of these little buggers. So let's start with mindset. Stress is very much of an external stimuli. Stress doesn't happen internally to us. We don't feel stress on the inside, though obviously some of those symptoms manifest themselves physically and mentally. But the reason why we're stressed out, the stressors, are all external. And I mentioned earlier that stress happens or is managed and perceived differently by each and every one of us. The same stressful situation is going to have two completely different outcomes based on your experiences in the past, your personality, everything. So the way you manage stress is going to be completely different than what other people are doing. Change is definitely one of the biggest challenges with stress, and I recognize that I think this has probably been the biggest year of change for many of us, so it's been a huge learning curve. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something called reframing. And this is a tactic that is widely renowned in the psychotherapy community. I've been taught it, it's something that I employ, and it's the practice of taking negative scenarios and trying to suss out the positives, trying to suss out where there's opportunity, and more often than not, there's some sort of opportunity. There's a silver lining, so to speak, in every negative scenario, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can reframe some of those scenarios. Starting with, instead of saying, my boss is overworking me, for anyone who may still be working right now, you might feel something like, my boss is putting too much on my plate, there's more work than I can handle, and I just don't understand how they don't see it. I'm struggling to keep up and I don't think I can do this anymore. That's a very negative way of perceiving what's happening with your relationship with your boss. And that's one way of looking at the scenario. But what we're going to do with reframing is we're going to try and turn a lot of what I just said on its head and see what positives we can find from here. So instead of saying that, try saying, my boss believes in me. I appreciate that my boss trusts me with so many projects. There's more work than I can handle, and I don't think that they see that, though. I'm confident I can do this with maybe a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance. More often than not, we'll mutter under our own breaths how much we are feeling overworked, stressed, and we don't understand why our bosses just don't see what we see. And the reality is sometimes they can't. They aren't you. They don't understand how you perceive stress and how you manage stress, how you manage workflow. So it's important for us to have very open conversations with the people who manage us and teach them how to manage us in the best way possible for maximum output. So remember that the next time you're feeling maybe a little bit overworked when you're feeling a little stressed out at work, just remember to take a moment and have those conversations with your boss as needed to make sure that they're aware of what's happening and see where you can get help and guidance where necessary. All right. Instead of saying, the interviewer doesn't value me, many of us probably have been in this scenario. Can't believe it, I went through all the trouble of submitting my resume, my cover letter, and my portfolio, and after many interviews with many different people on the team, I didn't get the job. They must not value me. Their hiring practices suck, and they've wasted my time. I understand so much the frustration, especially when we've interviewed several times at a company that we're getting really excited about and we've already invested time and energy into, only to hear that we were not selected, that they've gone with someone else, and then we start to feel kind of cruddy about ourselves. So instead of saying the interviewer doesn't value me, you could say the interviewer values someone else. Well, I went through the process of submitting my resume, cover letter, and portfolio, and after 3 interviews with many different people on the team, I didn't get the job. They must have found a better fit. So again, it's not about the interviewer not valuing you. They're looking for the best fit for their organization, so therefore they've found the better fit. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad fit and that you can't do the job. That just simply means that they found a better fit for them. And that's entirely okay. And that's just another way that we should be looking at it. Even better than this, we should be thinking that I am still valuable. Again, I'm grateful to have submitted my resume, cover letter, and portfolio. So we're expressing a little bit of gratitude about that. After 3 interviews with many different people, I learned more about what they need in a candidate. I wasn't a fit right now, but maybe there's an opportunity to help them out later. And this is really interesting because I think a lot of us dismiss companies and dismiss jobs when we don't get it on first try. There is no reason why we may not be a fit later on. And you take, the way I recommend it usually is you take this opportunity throughout the interview process to learn what matters to the company, to what matters to the recruiter. And if you can hone in on that and maybe even ask for a little bit of feedback after the interview, you can find out what they're looking for in a candidate and use that to your advantage in the next round. Because sure enough, they'll be hiring again in 3, 6, 12 months. And you might find an opportunity there. So don't forget about the fact that you are still valuable no matter what happens in the interview process. Instead of saying the pandemic sucks, I can't leave my house, I can't see my friends, I've been laid off from my job, and there is absolutely no end in sight. I don't know how to deal with it all. I've been guilty of saying this myself a few times this year. Again, we all kind of hit a wall, start to feel a little down on ourselves, and these feelings are entirely normal, natural. Don't deny them that they're happening. But certainly, the key here is to take a look at the scenario and see where we can find a little bit of positive. And surprisingly, even despite the fact that we're all going through a global pandemic right now, there are opportunities here for us to take advantage of. So instead of saying the pandemic sucks, try saying the pandemic has created new opportunities. So I'm grateful for the ability to work from home, spend more time with my household, learn new skills if you have the time, discover more about myself, save some money, gain extra time, explore new interests, hobbies, and maybe even business ideas. The pandemic is temporary and it will pass. So there's a few wonderful nuggets here, especially where it comes to saving some time and money. Certainly if you're not commuting to work every single day, and nobody is in a lot of areas in the world, you know, some of your overhead costs might be lower, so therefore you're saving a little bit of money. You might be having extra time right now during your day, and so it just takes maybe a little bit of self-discipline to make the most of that time. You can explore things like hobbies and interests, start a new business. So many people are jumping into entrepreneurship right now while they have the time to do so. And I think it's such a great opportunity. And then just the subtle reminder that the pandemic really is temporary. This is unlikely to be our scenario a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We will survive, we will thrive, we will rebuild anew. And this is, again, just a temporary scenario that we're just kind of all stuck in right now. So now that we know how to reframe, let's focus a little bit more on what you can control. And I'm going to share with you a brief exercise that you can do on your own time. Grab a piece of paper, and you can do this on your own time if you'd like. But it really helps you identify some of the things that, or puts into perspective rather, the things that you can control. This is something that I got from a webinar that I attended with Adecco recently, and it's called Identifying Your Circle of Influence. So what we're going to do is we're going to work from the inside circle out, layer by layer, to identify first the things we can control. So what can you do literally right now to improve your situation, whether that's reskill with something new, apply to more jobs, you can network more, you could do a whole slew of things. So start writing down all the things that you can potentially control right now, things that you can directly impact. Once you've exhausted that list, and hopefully you've got anywhere between 5 to 10, likely more, things in the control circle, go to the circle of influence. So this is the middle layer. So if there's nothing you can do, or if you've exhausted all the things you can do directly, next go to the things that you don't have a direct impact on, but perhaps you can talk to someone, and you can somehow influence an income or an outcome rather. This is one of those things that I especially recommend with networking. The more you expand your network, the more you expand your network, the more influence you have, the more other people can jump in and help you where you need them to. So identify people that you can turn to for help, identify topics that you can get advice on, and things like that. So we're trying to find the areas that we can influence. If we have no direct impact, then maybe influence through other people. And then lastly, on the outer circle, write down the things that you can't control. The weather, the pandemic itself. Write down all the things that you can't control. And though the things that you can't control may or may not outweigh the things that you can control, the point of this exercise is to gain a little perspective, because it's likely that in the control and influence columns, you have a great deal of influence. You can do a number of things that maybe you just haven't thought about yet. So that's where this exercise comes in, because it allows you to take a little bit of time to specifically hone in on the things that you can control and influence. And so with the things that you can, action things that you can control or influence, so you set up a plan to actually do something about it, and then simply brush off the things that you can't. The things that you know that you can't have any direct impact on whatsoever, indirect or direct, just brush them off, because there's really nothing that can be done, and there's no point in worrying about them and being sad about them. All right, let's talk about fear setting. And this is where we use fear as a motivator as opposed to a deterrent. And this is something that I picked up from an author named Tim Ferriss. He wrote a fabulous book called Tools of Titans. He hosts a podcast. He's written a few books, actually, and I think he's incredible. And on top of that, also super handsome bald guy. So Tim outlines this thing, and it's kind of the anti-goal setting thing, because I know a lot of us, especially now leading into January, we're going to probably start thinking a little bit about our resolutions for the year, what we want to accomplish. And hopefully that list is going to be at least a few more things longer than 2020 offered us. But of course, goals and resolutions sometimes might not be the best way for us to go about things, and that's totally fine. Not everyone's a resolution person. So this is the practice of looking at the things you're afraid of, and the things that maybe you've resisted, procrastinated on, putting those things under the microscope and identifying solutions for those things, and in the hopes of making yourself productive at the things maybe that you're scared of, and maybe overcoming some of those fears. So this activity in particular, so we're going to go through 3 different pages here. And again, this is something you can do on your own time. On page 1, or at the very top of page 1, what we're going to do is identify, what if I do the thing that scares me? You have to identify what it is. That can be, what if I quit a toxic job? What if I apply for a job I'm not confident I'll get? What if I ask someone out on a date? Whatever it is that scares you, put that at the very top of the page, the first page. And then underneath that, we're going to highlight 3 different columns. The first one is the define, second one is the prevent, third one is the repair. So for the define column, you're trying to find 10, maybe even 20 bullet points of what are the worst things that could possibly happen if you take that step. You're going to go and you're going to be brutal. You're going to come out with all the worst possible case scenarios, and you're going to put them into the define column. So you're going to list at least 10 to 20. After that, in the next column, in the prevent column, you're going to list the things that you can do to prevent these things from happening, or at least minimizing their impact. So for each one, as you go, go to number 1 on prevent, write down a solution, write down a thing that you can do to prevent that thing from happening. And then failing that, we're going to go to column number 3, which is repair. So again, going across the top, what can you do to repair if the worst case happens? What can you do to repair it, or who can you ask for help? And it's so incredible, because once you start identifying the worst case scenarios and putting potential solutions to them, they don't seem nearly as scary anymore. Suddenly you have an action plan, because I think that part of what scares us is the ambiguity of not knowing, the fear of the unknown, as they say. So I think it's really important to write these things down, because I think it'll give you a really interesting look, sort of from a bird's eye view on the page, of what are the things that you're scared of, and maybe finding some solutions against them. So that's page number 1. Page number 2, you are going to laundry list what might be the benefits of an attempt or a partial success. So this is lowest barrier of entry. Even if you're not fully successful of doing the thing that you're terrified of, what might be the benefits of an attempt? What could you learn? What about the partial success? What if you kind of got it, maybe, so if it's applying for a job that maybe you don't feel you're qualified for, you landed an interview, you didn't get the job, but what could you learn from that interview? What's the one thing? Because there's so much that you can uncover here. And this is one of those things that, again, because I love to practice gratitude, so many things you can learn, so many things you can be grateful for, so much goodness there to be discovered if you just take a little bit of time. So that's page number 2. Page number 3, and this is probably the most stark example of the things that scare us and their impact on you. So you think that by not doing the thing that's scary, you're like, it's out of sight, out of mind, and you don't have to worry about it. That's totally cool. I'm scared of that thing. I'm just never going to do it. But there's an opportunity cost that needs to be accounted for. So what is the cost of inaction? You procrastinating on that thing or never doing that thing ever, what are you potentially losing out on? If it's not applying to the job that you feel you're not qualified for, then you obviously don't get the job. And that's sad because there's always an opportunity to at least swing for it, to try for it, learn something from the experience. And if you're not at least doing that, then again, don't ask, don't get. So you have to recognize that there is a direct cost associated with inaction, with not doing something that scares you. And it could be physically, it could be emotionally, and it could be financially in the case of not getting the job that you thought you might not be qualified for, but you never know. Pro tip about job descriptions, they are padded with tons of fun things for you to do, usually in an attempt to disqualify candidates, not qualify candidates. So what that means is they're trying to lower the amount of people that are going to apply because they're trying to find the hyper-focused people that are going to be that fit. And that's not to say that you should apply if you have absolutely none of those things, but if you have like 50% of the things that they're asking for, apply. That makes you worth evaluating as a candidate. So just don't forget that. You don't have to check off every single one of the things on a job description. Well, and thank you so much for all the positive comments, everybody. I'm really excited that you're enjoying this. All right, let's talk about minimizing stress. And again, these are things that I do specifically for myself. I sometimes do all of them in a day. I sometimes do 1 or 2 of them, depending on how I'm feeling and how my mood is. And I'm going to start with meditation because this has been one of the biggest surprises for me. I used to be one of those people who thought that meditation was super hokey. Like, how could I possibly find Zen and excitement and happiness in my life just by sitting still? And I gave it a try back in 2018, and here's what happened. And I can't explain it scientifically other than the fact that my stress reactions are noticeably calmer. I am not going from 0 to 11. I'm like, yeah, I can manage stress confidently, calmly. I think through problems more clearly. My meditation time isn't always just about thinking about meditating. It's about thinking through problems in a distraction-free moment of my day and just not allowing my phone to be the thing that's controlling what's going on through my brain right now. So I managed to think through problems more clearly. I genuinely feel better. And it really makes work and job hunting so much easier to cope with. So these are just some off-the-cuff observations. I've been doing this now almost every single day for 2 years, and it has helped immensely. And I'm confident it can for you too. And you certainly don't have to devote yourself to a life of meditation in order to make it work. There are some very easy tips that you can employ right now to start your own meditation practice. So first of all, find a quiet spot with no interruptions. So you may need to put your phone away into another room. I'll usually bring my phone with me, if only just to play some soft music, some calming music. But that's it. It has to be interruption free. So make sure that you can't have someone come tap on your shoulder or bug you or taking a FaceTime call or anything like that. Start with 5 minutes. Most people think that meditation means you have to sit still for an hour or days at a time when you're on a retreat. Start with 5 minutes. That's it. Just 5 minutes of quiet time, sitting peacefully by yourself. While you're doing it, focus in on your breath. So just think a little bit about your breathing and certainly don't allow yourself to choke up, because I know that when we think about breathing, sometimes we get a little terrified. We're like, wait, how am I supposed to breathe? So just breathe naturally, breathe deeply, sit comfortably. You don't have to be cross-legged if you don't feel comfortable doing so. You can sit on a chair, beanbag chair, on your couch, whatever's comfortable for you. You can keep your eyes closed if you'd like. You can keep them open if you'd like, whatever works for you. Again, just make sure to minimize visual distractions. You're not gonna see your dog running across the room like mine typically does. And when thoughts enter your brain, do not block them. That's not the point of meditation, which is another one of those misconceptions I had about meditation. Thoughts will happen. We have very primal animal brains that will just pop in thoughts for no reason. So when they do, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to hold space for that thought. Just acknowledge that you're having a thought, a deadline looming, whatever it is. I have to make dinner. Acknowledge the thought, hold space for it, and then simply let it pass. And then refocus in on your breath. Just remember to keep remembering that you're breathing. And then once you do this a few times, it'll probably take about a week of doing it every single day before you start to really notice a difference. But even after a couple practices, a couple days, I'm confident that you'll find some sort of joy in doing this. And certainly I did, if anything, just because it's a break in my day. And I don't have to be glued to my computer for 24 hours a day, which I feel like a lot of us are doing right now. If you need help at all with meditation specifically, there are apps that can help you with that. Headspace is an incredible app with a lot of great guided meditations. Calm on your left-hand side here is also a wonderful app. I subscribe to the Calm app. One of my favorite features about the Calm app specifically happens to be that they have sleep stories, which are quite literally bedtime stories for adults, narrated by celebrities like LeVar Burton and Stephen Fry, and who else? They just did one with Mandy Moore recently. Yeah, so great apps to try. They usually have free versions to give it a try for at least 7 days. So yeah, something that might be useful for you. The next thing that I wanted to share is journaling. And journaling, again, is one of those things that I thought was super hokey when learning about it sort of in my adult life. I remember journaling as a kid and talking about, playing with toys and things like that. But journaling can be an effective tool in adulthood right now as you, to use it to reflect on what's happening in your life, to come up with solutions, to think critically, and more importantly, maybe just to document what's happening in your life. And it's really exciting to reflect on that later on. There's a cathartic, get it off your chest feeling about journaling that is really, really helpful. And it's so much more than just writing, "Dear Diary, I have a crush on this person and they looked at me in class," and things like that. It's so much more than that. It really is an effective tool. So I'll share with you a couple ways to journal that might be interesting to you. So why journaling? This is one of those moments where you can take stock of where you are right now. It's the cathartic exercise of getting it off your chest. Sometimes literally when I'm in a really bad mood, I will just free write everything that's going on in my brain, all of that anger, all of that frustration, just to just get it off my chest. And it's very much the same way as talking it out with someone, which I think is super effective. Document the important moments of your life to reflect later on. You can discover things to be grateful for, which I've always found really, really exciting, because every one of us has something to be grateful for right now, even if it is just breathing and being alive right now. I think that's something to be grateful for. Enjoying coffee in the morning. Discovering gratitude through journaling has been one of the big things for me specifically. And lastly, journaling is easy peasy to do. So 1-sentence journaling. This is the lowest barrier of entry, and I recommend everyone give it a try. You can even get, there's like a 1-sentence journal that you can buy that documents 1 sentence every single day over 5 years. I've got like 3 of these journals now, and I can't believe I've been journaling for this long, but yeah, it's crazy. So lowest barrier of entry, it focuses on the thing that impacted you the most that day, not just things you did. So you're not just gonna write, "I ordered pizza and watched Netflix today." You're gonna talk a little bit about what impact or what mood you were feeling in that 1 sentence. And more often than not, the good stuff here is focusing in on the good things that happened throughout the day. So trying to identify something positive that happened, write it down as 1 sentence, and there you go. Next, 5-minute journaling. So a little bit of an offshoot of the 1-sentence journal. The 5-minute journaling prompt, also promoted by Tim Ferriss, is super effective because there's specific prompts that I use to follow. And when I read each one of these, I'm able to sort of put a few bullet points under each one of these to help outline what my day looks like, outline what my day looked like yesterday, outline what my day is going to look like today, and it really helps set myself up for a great mood, actually. So in a blank notebook, you don't need to specifically buy a notebook. You can just grab paper, or you can do it on your phone if you'd like. So write down 3 things for each of the following prompts. And if you can't find 3, that's okay. Start with 1. Again, try to find the lowest barrier of entry so that you can make this into a useful habit for you. But so we're going to write down for each of the following, what was awesome about yesterday. So it could be, saw a really cute dog across the street, had a really great cup of coffee, got Skip the Dishes delivered to me. anything. You're trying to find all the things that are really, really exciting about yesterday. What was awesome about yesterday? And then reflecting back on how could I have made it better? So anything you could have done, anything you could have learned, anything you could have impacted to make the day a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be like, here are all the things I did wrong. It's literally just like, hey, how can I take what was already good and make that even better? What am I grateful for right now in this moment? So again, great cup of coffee. I love coffee, guys. So being grateful for a great cup of coffee in this moment right now. What could make today awesome? So reflecting forward into your day. I usually journal in the morning. So reflecting forward into the day, what could make today awesome? And it has to be something specific. It's not just like, oh, what could be awesome today? Like I could win the lottery. Like, yeah, you could do that. But I mean, let's be a bit more realistic about what could potentially happen today. That's amazing. And then what are some nice things you can say about yourself? Some nice affirmations. I'm feeling confident today. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling like I've got this. I know that COVID's challenging, but I'm confident that I've got this. And lottery seems like a decent goal to me. Yes. Everybody buy your tickets. So writing down some really, really positive affirmations is also great because again, it might seem silly to like stare into a mirror and tell yourself nice things. At least it feels awkward for me sometimes, certainly. And so that's where journaling is like, hey, just say a nice thing about yourself, at least one, and if not, find three. There's so much wonderfulness about you to share that I think you can positively write down. And again, this is about the self-compassion piece, which we're leading up to. Lastly, free-form writing. So again, this is one of those things that maybe you just want to document what's going on in your brain, the feelings that you're having in a specific moment. And this is one of those things that I can write for for like an hour straight. And I usually actually do it on my phone. So I've got a folder in my notes app that actually has like this laundry list of like things and free-form thoughts that I've had just sort of frantically typing out of my phone. But it's great because you can get as detailed as possible, and it's a great way to start identifying patterns about your behavior and about your moods and things about you that maybe you haven't fully discovered. And then you can identify tools to move forward from that. You can't measure you can't grow what you don't measure or improve what you don't measure. So you have to use journaling as a tactic to be able to document your progress right now, where you are, and ultimately where you want to be, and sort of track that progress, which is really exciting. Okay, so let's talk about coping and self-compassion. It's interesting to see a lot of us maybe not be practicing as much self-compassion for ourselves right now. And I understand how challenging it can be. It's especially in a time right now, I think there's a lot of pressure for us to perform, a lot of pressure for us to figure out how to live during a pandemic. What do we do? How do we grow? How do we strive? How do we thrive? It's there's a lot going on right now, and the holidays make it not any easier. Leading up to the holidays, I recognize there's a lot of things on everyone's mind right now. So it's important to take a moment for ourselves and practice a little bit of self-compassion. And especially if anyone's feeling the challenges of mental health, especially around right now. I'm someone who sometimes suffers from anxiety and depression, so I recognize that these are tools that I actually need to keep myself in check. So I wanted to share a practice that I use sometimes to help ground myself when I'm feeling particularly peaked with anxiety. So this is something called grounding using your senses. And what we're doing with this is we're actually counting down from 5 and using our senses to sort of pull our attention away from the thing that's stressing us out, the thing that's bothering us, and focusing in on our senses. And much like meditation and focusing in on your breathing, we're using our senses here to help again, pull our focus away from the thing that's bothering us. And we find very quickly that once we've pulled our attention away, that thing, the effects of that thing are minimal. They start to reduce. So counting down from 5, we're gonna identify 5 things that we can see. So name 5 things you can see with your eyes, like a cup of coffee, table, plant in the corner of the room, lamp, anything. Name 5 things you can see. Next, name 4 things you can touch. And so you're looking for that physical sensation. It can be literally your hands rubbing against each other, the desk, your shirt, your pants, your head, headphones, anything. So name 4 things you can touch. 3 things you can hear: ambient noise, this webinar, cars driving down the street, dog barking, naming 3 things you can hear. Two things you can smell. Again, so ambient smell sort of coming from the other room. It could be your deodorant, anything. And then lastly, one thing you can taste. So it could be breath mints, it could be gum, it could be your toothpaste, it could be lunch that you just had or are having. So again, focusing in on that one sense. Pardon me. And so again, focusing in on the five senses and counting down from five, you find that after you practice this exercise, the goal obviously is to be a little bit calmer, to be able to tackle whatever's challenging you with a bit of a clearer mind. Because when we're in it, when we're in the thing that stresses us out, it could be super challenging to get through it because we may not be thinking clear. We're ringing a 5-alarm fire in our head, bell in our head. So that's where we use this exercise specifically to help ground us. Some other ways that you can refuel, and I think that all of us need to nurture our souls a little bit and do something that makes us feel good. So first of all, do something that you win at, something that you're great at, whether that's writing, whether that's, for me, it's video games. I love playing video games as a way to de-stress, and it triggers the reward center in your brain. You're rewarding yourself for doing a good job on something that you're amazing at. Pick one thing to finish today. If you're staring down the barrel of a super long to-do list and it seems mega overwhelming for you right now, even as it relates to job seeking, when you're like, oh, I have to fill out this application and I have to meet with this person and I have to network with that person, pick one thing today. If you're feeling stressed out today, pick one thing, make that the mountain you have to climb, finish that one thing and pat yourself on the back. There's no harm, no foul. Simplify your day a little bit and remove that extra clutter. Make the task achievable. Focus on some professional development. Maybe you just want to take the rest of the afternoon and read some blogs, articles, watch some videos, do some LinkedIn learning, do some Lighthouse Labs learning. Do something that's going to help reskill you, teach you, fuel that sense of curiosity and excitement for you. Focus on your passion and your purpose. Maybe take some time to think a little bit about what drives you, what motivates you, what are the hobbies and exciting things that you're that you enjoy doing. Putting down your phone for just a few hours, this is super transformative. Have you ever just turned your phone off for 4 hours and then come back to it? Like, I imagine you must feel so much better. It certainly helps for me. Sometimes in the evenings, I'll have to put my phone down and give myself that mental break, and I find it to be great. And even during the day, actually, if I'm under deadline for something, I'll put my phone away and into my drawer, and I won't look at it until I'm done the sort of most important things. Getting a good night's sleep, obviously. Eat a healthy meal, obviously. Exercise, obviously. Having a cup of tea. This is super cool. Even just having a cup of tea can be very transformative and very just nourishing for the soul. Or start a Zoom call with a friend. I think that especially right now, as we've transitioned to work from home, job search from home, we're we're feeling a lot more isolated and a little more lonely. And I think it's really important to make sure we're not losing the fact that we are social beings, that we're social animals, that we deserve to be making connections with other human beings. And though it seems super awkward to just have a Zoom call with your friend versus a Zoom call with your interviewer or a potential boss, making time for your friends, even just for a face-to-face chat over video, I think is so important. And again, being able to rely on our friends for support, I think is really, really, really important and helps us move forward. So with that said, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the work that I'm doing with Landing and give you guys a fun little invitation to the community that I'm building. I think that this might be something that's useful for you guys. So with Landing, it's a career development platform where there's blogs, an email newsletter, some podcast episodes that I recorded last year. And the goal here is to really help, again, destigmatize job search, empower you, give you guys the tools you need to job search effectively. But most importantly, this year, what I've been doing is actually curating a community for job seekers. And I wanted this to be a safe space for you guys to be able to, one, talk to me, talk to each other, share your stories, and just find the support that you're looking for. So as part of the Landing community, you can join a community of like-minded career builders. So we're super focused on career. We're not just about sharing sort of the frustrations, but we're trying to find solutions to the problems. And so this is a safe space for you to air some of those grievances, but also talk a little bit about your experience and find the support you're looking for with each other. I feel that sometimes maybe we may not feel comfortable sharing some of these stories on LinkedIn for obvious reasons, as we're recruited on that platform. So this is meant to be more of a safe space to be able to talk a little bit about job search and what you're encountering in your experience. Build your professional network. I do daily check-ins with some motivational quotes and some fun stuff like that. I do monthly challenges. This year, or this month rather, we are actually doing the fear setting exercise. So we're just wrapping that up. I do a monthly live workshop and monthly Q&A. The goal of this is meant to be a distraction-free environment as well. So this is not a Facebook group. This is specifically a, again, distraction-free environment. You're meant to log into this thing outside of Facebook. It's ad-free, vendor-free, again, safe space for my job seekers. You can join private groups by topic. You can access the community on your laptop or your mobile device through something called the Mighty Networks app. And of course, no long-term commitment. Stay as long as you need. I want to make sure that I'm serving you, that you guys are getting the value you need. And so right now, especially during the pandemic, so it's yours to try for free for 1 month. So you can go ahead and subscribe to that. And then after that, it's just $5.99 per month. So the cost of a networking coffee-ish for all of that fun stuff. And I hope to actually grow the community. It's small but mighty right now, but we're hoping to grow the community into something much more bigger, much more flourishing, and something that I'd love to be able to share with the wider job search community, as well as we find support with each other. Because I think that there's some real value in being able to lean on each other's experience for this. All right, guys. So we're just wrapping up. We've got 12 minutes left. Please absolutely start throwing your questions into the chat. I'd love to hear from you. But I'll leave you with this. Make an effort every day to reframe any negative scenarios that you're feeling into positive ones. Focus in on what you can control. Again, I think that there's plenty that you can control, even though it feels that there's plenty that you can't. Let fear be the motivator as opposed to the deterrent. There's a lot of greatness that you can discover by using your fears and sort of turning them on their head. Meditate, journal, exercise, fuel yourself any way that you need in order to strive in a time like this. And it's entirely okay, whatever it is you're feeling, you deserve to make that time for some self-care and compassion. And last but not least, be kind to yourself. I can't underpin this more. Say hello to Sunday. This is my dog and my chief happiness officer at Landing. She keeps me company every single day and puts a huge smile on my face. And she's my reminder to be kind to myself as well, even in the midst of some days that could be very, very challenging for me. So yeah. All right, friends. So I'll leave you with this here. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the work that I'm doing with Landing, it's goodlanding.co. And if you wanted to join the community, you're welcome to go to goodlanding.co/community. You can learn a little bit more about that there. And that would be it. I'm so excited that I was able to spend my afternoon with you guys today. I hope you found some value in this. And let's throw it over to some questions. Caroline?
Definitely. Yeah. I'm keeping
All right.
that here. Thanks so much, Richard. There's lots of love going on in the chat. Sure. I think everyone's probably frantically typing good landing. We'll also out the recording, and we'll include this link as well in the follow-up email.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
I think there's probably going to be more questions to come, but there's a bit of a broad one in the chat right now. Are you able to help someone who doesn't have a career direction? And I think a lot of people are probably feeling like that right now.
Yeah, that's so great question. Rosalind? Yes. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have a career direction. And if we don't have one right now, I think that's okay. I think the goal here is to do something and figure out whether that's something you want to pursue long-term. I think we're terrified of making mistakes, as if taking a job that might not be a fit for us right now is the worst thing that could potentially happen. I think life is a series of trial and errors, and I think that if you have no career direction right now, my only real suggestion is first start with the things that you're kind of passionate about, and maybe take some time to think a little bit about what those hobbies and interests are. Find ways that other people are making a career off of those hobbies and interests, and start to sort of plot out that journey for yourself. And in the meantime, of course, I know a lot of us need an income immediately in order to survive. Again, taking on jobs just on a freelance and contract basis, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because again, we're building a very a very non-linear career, full of adventure, full of opportunity. And again, a step in the wrong direction doesn't necessarily have to be wrong. It's something that you're going to learn from and adapt. So that's what I would answer to that.
Perfect. I definitely agree that there's a lot of pressure for us to figure out exactly what we want to do for the rest of our lives right now, and that we feel passionate about it and all those things, which definitely puts a lot of pressure on. There's less questions in the chat and more just singing your praises.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Attended workshops related to career seeking, and this is by far the best one, and that's been reiterated by a couple people. If there are no other questions, feel free to turn your mic on as well if you want to ask your question using voice. And here's one. All the way from New York City. I am reading a book, William Irvine, called The Stoic Challenge, A Philosopher's Guide to Becoming Tougher, Calmer, and More Resilient, that came out this year. Are you familiar with it?
So great question, Cloud. So I have not heard of this book in particular. I'm going to butcher the author's name. In fact, I can't remember the author's name now. But there's something else called the Daily Stoic. Ego is the way. Ego is something. Oh my goodness. All right, I don't remember it now. Yeah. Have you heard of it?
I know what you're
talking
about.
So there's an author who's kind of preaching stoicism in modern day, which again is not something I would have ever subscribed to now, but I wouldn't have subscribed to it until a few years ago, rather. But there's so much value and so much gold to be. There we go. Ego is the enemy. Ryan Holiday. Yes, that's the guy. So yeah, that's the one that I've heard about specifically, and some brilliant thoughts and philosophies on stoicism in modern day, which I think absolutely apply to our daily lives. And so great read, total recommend, and I will have to check out the Stoic Challenge. So I think that's super cool. Thanks for the book, Reco.
And on that note, because I think that's coming out of the conversation with Tim Ferriss, I'll also send out the TED Talk that Tim Ferriss does on fear setting, because Richard and I have both geeked out over that TED Talk. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And mindset in that book. Yeah, absolutely. It's so much of it is about mindset, Cloud. Yeah, and I'm glad that you're a fan of Tim Ferriss as well too. I know his work is I think you and I talked a little bit about this, but I'll share it with the group because I think it's funny. So the book that introduced me to Tim Ferriss, and I would recommend this to everyone also, is called Tools of Titans. And Tim interviews sort of titans of industry. He literally interviews Arnold Schwarzenegger, people who are huge into the medical community, surfing, actors, celebrities, all these incredible people who are sort of the best of the best and the best at what they do. And my first instinct when I saw this book, I don't even know why I bought it, because I was angry at the book when I first saw it, thinking I was what are these jokers going to teach me? There's nothing, I thought it was a very self-serving look at it at first. But when I started to dive into the book, there are practical tools there that are absolutely applicable right now. And I was able to take away so much wonderful value from that book. And now it's completely changed my life. And Tim Ferriss completely blew my brain. So yeah, it's a total recommend from my part.
And one other question. This is probably the last one we have time for. What podcasts or resources would you recommend, on that note, for someone trying to make sense of their entrepreneurial journey and career setting?
Great question, George. I would have to let me put some thought into that, and I'll maybe send my answers over to Caroline, because I can't remember them off the top of my head. It's actually, I only ever listened to podcasts when I was commuting to work, and I haven't commuted to work in 10 months. So I don't remember now which ones I listen to around the regular, but there's definitely a couple that I'm sure I could share with you. So hold tight. I'll send some recos. And for anyone who's still online right now with us, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Richard Gawlas, Gawlas. Please connect with me. I'd love to keep in touch and help any way I can.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I think that's it as the chat is quieting down. We also do include often book recommendations and podcast recommendations in our newsletter, which I'm sure there's lots of talk about that in Richard's community as well. So between those two things, hopefully you all feel good going into the holiday season with lots of community to support you. Thanks so much for attending, and thank you, Richard, for your enthusiasm and your awesome advice around this, and drawing from personal and professional experience. It's obviously very much appreciated.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. It was such a pleasure to meet you guys today. And yeah, let's keep in touch.
Bye now, and happy Thanksgiving to Claude.
Happy Thanksgiving to Claude and anyone else who might be celebrating, even though we might not all be in the States. All right, take care, everybody.